Welcome to another edition of the Boston Sports Brew. Baseball is back, and after one game, it appears the Red Sox are too. How much will we overreact? The Bruins have won 5 straight, but they likely need more W's over their last 3 games to be playoff bound. Will they get them? And the Celtics are playing like, well, the Celtics. We'll talk about their postseason push too on this edition of the Boston Sports Brew. Clay Buchholz is Pedro Martinez, Mattious.
No way, Droz. Don't ever compare those two. You never know what you're going to get from Buchholz. I could go on the record right now and say that might be on April 7th. We are today, April 7th, on our lovely Tuesday. That might be his best start of the year.
Well, first off, I'd like to know, because you're in Boston and I'm not, but are people around there going nuts about that start? I know 7 innings, 3 hits, 9 strikeouts, 1 walk, no earned runs. Like, have people been going like, oh my gosh, he really could be an ace?
No, I don't think so. I think people who have any type of brain when it comes to sports realize that Clay Buchholz is one of the worst pitchers in baseball last year. So with that being said, no. People are more talking about the Rick Porcello contract. Now the 12th highest paid pitcher in baseball is just mind-boggling to me. I mean, you wouldn't think of him if you had to name like top 15 pitchers to be up there in salary, but we got him. He's pretty much controlling the communication around here, whether it's on TV, radio, whatever. And people are just saying, yeah, great start by Buchholz, but we don't really know ever. He could go like this for the entire year, in my opinion, and I still wouldn't trust him if playoff time came around.
Rick Porcello, out of all the pitchers in the pitching staff this year for the Red Sox, appears to me to have the most upside based on the fact that he's a former first-round pick. His stats have gotten better. His peripherals gotten better every single season. But on the other hand, and he's only 26 or 25. But on the other hand, he hasn't been dominant at all yet. And his strikeouts, he does not strike many people out. And I don't know. I don't think actually, you got to strike out players. I can understand why they like Porcello the most out of the 5 pitchers in that staff, but I don't think he's worth being the 12th highest average paid pitcher in all of Major League Baseball at this juncture of his career.
No, I mean, you got the Red Sox taking a risk, obviously, by giving a boatload of money to a guy who has been around for a while. I mean, people lose the fact that Rick Porcello came up when he was 20 years old, and he immediately started games for Detroit. So he has been around, and like you said, Droz, his numbers have gotten better. And last year, to be honest, I didn't even realize how well his stats were. But It's promising to see that his numbers have gotten better. But it's just mind-boggling to me. One day after Rick Porcello's like, I'm not talking about contract for the entire year. I guess money talks, huh, Droz?
Well, of course, and the Red Sox love to spend it too.
Oh yeah, no doubt about that.
I mean, they've been spending money on everybody for about a year now. Ever since they won the World Series, they've just been spending money on everything.
Don't tell Larry Lucchino that we're not the Yankees, though. God forbid.
Yeah, it's pretty ridiculous. And Porcello, he may end up actually playing out to this contract, but even if he does, it's dumb to do it now. I know you could say, they have futuristic vision here of what's to come, and the numbers do suggest that he actually should be very good. Will he be the 12th best pitcher in the league? Maybe not. Would he be a solid number 2 starter? Yes. Does that warrant being the 12th highest pitcher in the league? Probably not.
Probably not. I mean, he's taking a risk himself too, because it is a free agent year. He's still young. I mean, this is going to give him time to have a possibility of going out there when he turns 30 and getting another contract. And it's a 4-year deal. This is like, I feel like this is the new thing with the Red Sox. They don't want to give long-term deals. They're not going any higher with 5 years with anybody, and that's we could easily see that in the offseason by going with Sandoval and Hanley Ramirez. They're giving more money in a less amount of years so they don't get stuck with maybe a bad contract, and it's risky by both sides because Porcello could go out there this year and pitch even better than people think, and on the open market, he's a young arm. He could have gotten even more money, so he's kind of taking a risk. But I don't think if somebody comes on my door, I mean, it's tough for you and me making our peasant pay compared to these guys. If someone comes to my door and gives me this as an offer, I don't think I can decline.
Well, no, it's hard to decline, and especially because Porcello has not made money yet in Major League Baseball. Although you know that probably likely to make money. On the other hand, he is a pitcher, and pitchers do tend to get hurt at some point. So maybe it is a good idea, especially because like you said, he's been around since he's been 20. So it's not like while he may be young, he has pitched a lot of innings. It's kind of like Kobe Bryant. He's not that old, but he's got a lot of games under his belt, and that's why you see his legs falling apart.
Yeah, the Red Sox went out there and they said, you know what, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go out there and we're going to build our staff around Buchholz and Porcello because Buchholz is signed to 2018, Porcello's 2020. Could they be 2 or 3s? Yeah, they're not the ace. This team does not have an ace, period. And I'm not a fan of Wade Miley. He's the next longest term starter. That's after them two. Then you got Masterson on the 1-year thing and Joe Kelly on the Cy Young Joe on his 1-year deal. So yeah, I don't mind the sign-in with all the way the stats are going, and his arm seems to be healthy, knock on wood.
Yeah, he's been good.
Yeah, he's not one of those guys that gets hurt like we've talked about.
He's a ground ball pitcher.
Yeah, kind of like Masterson. He's not one of those guys that we have to worry about, and I'll say it again, knock on wood, when it comes to injury, because unlike the offensive side of the ball, where the offense got off to a great start yesterday, led by our new man Hanley Ramirez, as well as Dustin Pedroia, who came out this preseason and said this is the healthiest he's felt in years, and who knows? I mean, 2 home runs from that guy on opening day was amazing because I felt like he was stuck on 6 for like 3 months last year, and then you got Hanley just pulling the ball, hitting a grand slam. It was a good start all around. We only got about 161 games left, though, so there's no reason to have an overreaction with one game. Sometimes I feel like people do that, and if I had to say, people aren't overreacting. It is one game. It's positive. It's opening day. It's positive. Everyone's happy. Baseball's back. Hopefully, now the weather comes back in the Northeast too.
Look, I can understand why everyone overreacts. I mean, it's like fantasy baseball. People that play fantasy baseball, after one day, their superstar goes 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts.
Trade him.
And, yeah, trade him or drop him or whatever, and you see this one guy like Dustin Ackley, who's hitting a home run now, I believe, on 3 straight opening days, and they're like, oh, I need Dustin Ackley, but yet he hits 240 for the rest of the season. You can't overreact after opening day, but I can understand why you'd like to, because one, especially in the North, it's been cold all winter, and now it's suddenly baseball, and baseball signifies usually warmth, so you're pumped up about that, and then double in the fact that, yeah, it's the 162-game season. You've been waiting for it for a while. You haven't seen your team. Most people haven't seen their team since the end of September. So you're really excited. You're excited for them to get out there. So you're going to overreact on day one. And it's kind of people, there's ceremonies at a lot of these stadiums. The Chicago Cubs did something for Ernie Banks. And, you'll see this all over the place. So opening day is big. And, a lot of people would argue that it should be a holiday for that matter. But yes, overreaction happens on day one. I think after that, people calm down. Hanley Ramirez hitting 2 home runs. Hanley's offense is not a problem. I've never said that Hanley Ramirez cannot hit the ball, but Hanley Ramirez needs to stay healthy, or at least needs to just have the desire to want to keep playing. And one day into the season, when you're feeling fresh and feeling good, that's easy to do. But let's talk, 2 months down the road from now and see what Hanley's doing. And if he's still doing it, then maybe we can give him a couple pats on the back. But I'm not even coming close to that. Pedroia is the more interesting thing, and I say this because the previous 2 seasons, he on opening day for him in both seasons, he injured his thumb, And he played the entire season, so people look at his stats and his power numbers were down. Not that they've ever been, Babe Ruth like, but he was much better. And like you said, stuck on like 6 home runs. I don't even think he hit double digits last year. And Pedroia comes away with 2 home runs right off the bat off Cole Hamels, who's a solid pitcher. Albeit it's April, it's his first start, and once again, I don't go off first starts. So I feel out of all the things that happened for the Red Sox, the one thing that makes me feel the best is actually Pedroia. Pedroia hitting 2 home runs, because if he can get some power back, that's gonna help. But then again, who's to say that Pedroia is not gonna do a backflip into Pablo Sandoval's butt, and Pablo falls on it and breaks his finger again? So I don't know. Something could happen to Pedroia because of how hard he plays, and that's usually what happens. But if he plays and he's got this power, it was nice to see him hit 2 home runs.
It was not nice. It was borderline amazing, Droz, because you're right. Last year he only hit 7 home runs, and then the year before he only hit 9. And now in one game he hit 2. So that would be unbelievable for the Red Sox if somehow he could get back in the teens. I'm not even asking to reach the 20 like his when a year that he was in the top 10 for MVP, and even the year when he won the MVP, he only hit 17. I'm just looking for a guy to get on base and have a little bit more pop in his bat. So that'd be great. You're right. And I'm not going to get excited about Buchholz. I don't even care if he went out there and struck out 14. I will not get excited with that guy. I'm not sold on him. Like you said, baseball is a long season. I'm going to have to go until June when it comes to Clay Buchholz, and it's just different with pitchers, obviously, because they don't play every day like the fielders do. So it's going to take a lot longer time for me to be sold with Clay Buchholz. But overall, I shift a smidge towards the amount of negativity that I've talked about with the Red Sox, and it starts with one thing and one thing only, and that is, thank God Rusney Castillo got hurt, because people who have listened to the Boston Sports Brew here with Droz and Mattious know how much not only Droz loves Mookie Betts as a fantasy player, but Mookie Betts is a stud, all right?
Yeah.
And I am happy that actually happened, okay, where Castillo got injured and now we have Mookie, and it's going to be tough for him to get out of the lineup. And he's not going to come out of the lineup unless he gets injured. So keep Castillo around, obviously, because Victorino, exactly, knock on wood again for like the 3rd time this show already, but 150 games Victorino has sat out in the last 2 years. He is going to get hurt. He's like all getting upset about people talking about him on the radio, and dude, you can't argue the facts. You've been hurt, all right? So stop getting all worried about it and angry about it, and realize the facts that, yeah, people have a job to do and people are going to call you out because you've been hurt a lot. So, yeah, I'm happy that Betts is there. Like you said with Ramirez, same thing. We got to wait. I'd say maybe even the same with Buchholz, even to June. Maybe even a little bit earlier. We'll see. But around the diamond, I mean, yeah, you're right with Pedroia. It's a player that, again, has great baseball player, that dirt dog mentality that we all love here in Boston. I don't really think anyone will ever hate Dustin Pedroia. He's one of those players that he's done enough already that if he has like a bad season here or there, I still think people will love him because of the attitude he brings to the team. But you're right. Who's to say when they make a shift and Powell doesn't come over and sit on him? It's possible. You don't know. The guy plays like a raging lunatic out there. So I hope he could stay healthy, return to the stature that he was. I mean, in the teens, getting on base. I mean, his OBP dropped a little bit last year. If he's in the 370s, 380s, I mean, watch out with this team. They're not going to have problems scoring runs. You're right. All right. It's going to come down to me for the pitching staff, and we could go down the run right now, and it's question mark after question mark, and I'm not going to change that for a while. And question marks go all the way down to their closer. You got Uehara starting the year on the disabled list, so it's that side of the ball in health that I'm more worried about out of anything.
Well, health is definitely the biggest key with the Red Sox, especially, well, I guess pitching always should be a question with health for any team. And with the Red Sox, it's health on offense as well. Having players like Pedroia who just play their hearts out and get hurt, trying hard, or whether it be Hanley Ramirez who, just decides he doesn't want to play much because he's, got a bruise or whatever, or if it's Pablo Sandoval who, tweaks a hamstring bending over to field a ground ball.
Don't forget about Clay Buchholz and that mesmerizing crick or like neck pull that lasted for a couple months too. So yeah, it's crazy what these guys happen injury wise, but it's health, man. Health, especially on that pitcher side, is going to be key for this season to have any success whatsoever.
I will say this though about the pitching staff. The team that's won the AL East, the Baltimore Orioles, I believe the last 2 seasons, right? They won it last season.
Correct.
And yeah, last 2 seasons, Baltimore Orioles. Their opening day starter this season is Chris Tillman, and they don't have anybody in any of these years. I try naming like one of their pitchers that's a dominating ace or even a great number 2, Mattious.
Who, Baltimore?
Baltimore.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was trying to think like, are the Red Sox somehow gonna like try to make their team with like Baltimore, because they haven't had. I think they have Bud Morris now, right? And
yeah, Bud Norris, but that's not gonna like make anybody think Sandy Koufax.
No, I understand your point, Droz. It's just that Baltimore was so great because of their bullpen, and Showalter knows how to manage. That guy is an underrated manager. Turned that team around, and I got a lot of people picking them again to win the East this year. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, they did lose a couple guys here and there, including Nelson Cruz, but you got Machado back. Waiters will come back, so it's going to be interesting to see with them. But yeah, back to your point, they don't have that wow guy on their staff. They don't even have like anyone remotely close to that. You're right.
No, Buchholz, you could argue Buchholz is better than any of their starters, or at least at one point in time has been better than any of their starters have ever been. So I just, just maybe, when you have an offense, if the offense can stay healthy, which I really don't think can happen, and maybe this pitching staff can just, do its job, I guess, and be a bunch of number 3s or 2s or whatever, maybe they can pull through with that. I don't know. It's just when I look at Baltimore and throw in the fact that they've won and the past 2 seasons won the division, it makes me question, well, or at least ponder the fact that, yeah, maybe you don't need as much the dominating pitching that, in my mind, I've always thought you do need to actually get into the postseason and win.
Yeah, it's a possibility. So let's go on here. Let's go on the record here, Droz. What do you think? Postseason this year or not?
No, I've said it before, and as much as that thought just came to my mind, I'm still going to stick with the fact that I don't think the Red Sox offense stays healthy. If it does, yeah, fine. They'll come close to making the postseason, but I'm going to say they don't, and they finish 4th in the American League East. The only team that's going to finish worse than them is the Yankees.
Okay. I don't know. I've been struggling with this. I did a lot of research over the weekend to see exactly what's been going on with teams and who's there and who's not. I really like the Mariners this year, to be honest. But fact of the matter is, yeah, I think the Red Sox are going to go crazy, though, this year when it comes to the trade deadline, and I think they are going to squeak in. I really do. I think they're going to get one of those 2 wild cards, and I think they're going to trade prospects, and everyone's going to flip out, but for the last 3, maybe even 4 out of 5 years, and I know that 2013 season that they won the World Series is a big fluke, but there's been no summer baseball when it comes to anything whatsoever. They were just atrocious. So I think that they are going to somehow pull through, and injuries will occur. I'm not going to say that, but I think that they actually do have some depth behind those positions where guys are going to be able to step in and contribute. So I'm going to pick them going as one of the wild cards.
All right, Boston to the playoffs for Mattious. Droz has them out. And as for the Bruins, we might have the opposite thought as well. 3 games to go for the Bees. They're sitting there. I wouldn't call it pretty, but they're sitting there 2 points ahead of Ottawa for the final playoff spot, but tied with the Red Wings and now the Pittsburgh Penguins for that final spot in the Eastern Conference. 3 games to go. They do not add up well for the Bruins. It's an at Washington on Wednesday, then followed by an at Florida on Thursday, so back-to-backs there, and then followed by at Tampa on Saturday, which confuses me in the first place because I don't get why the 2 Florida games couldn't have been put together if you're going to do back-to-backs on the road. But whatever. That's how they're going to end their season. Chara got a little beat up in the last game when he took a puck off the ankle, and he actually played the rest of the game. When he got hit, it looked bad. It looked like he was going to go down. And I feel like earlier that day I heard people talking about, when you block pucks, people blocking pucks break their ankles and feet. And then, sure enough, Chara gets hit by a slapper, and he's like keeling over. But he comes back, I think, maybe 2 shifts after, and he seemed fine to me. And obviously, it's one of those things probably where when the game's over, then it starts to,
swell up.
Swell up and hurt.
Exactly. I was worried with the ankle. I was worried with the tibia, the fibula. I mean, those bones don't have a lot of meat on your legs. It is what it is. So you get hit there, things can break easily down there. They have padding down there, but you get 90 mile an hour shots going at that area, anything can happen. But you're right, Droz. They're sitting there and they're tied with a bunch of teams. There's an important game for the Bruins tonight. You got Pittsburgh going against Ottawa. I was watching the Pittsburgh game at Philadelphia the other day. They are going the opposite direction that you want to go in right now, and people are worried in Pittsburgh because they might not be making the playoffs down there. Now they got to go to Ottawa tonight, where Ottawa's fighting for their life. I actually like Ottawa in that game, and I think that Ottawa is going to chump them or at least tie them in the standings. And Pittsburgh might be on the outside looking in. You bring up a good point that the Bruins, they got to go on the road. We talked about this a month ago, that this end of the season is probably going to decide whether or not they get into the playoffs or not. We were both right. So pat ourselves in the back with that.
Well, they haven't gotten into the playoffs yet. I believe they're going to get in, but I'm knocking on wood just because I'm always superstitious like that. Yeah, but they have not gotten into the playoffs. This is way too close. There's 2 points behind and all these teams tied. I don't even know where the tie breaks go.
Yeah,
at this point.
I understand that, but we both said it's going to come down to these last 3 games to get into the playoffs or not. So we're here right now. I'm a little worried because the schedule doesn't match up that great. Florida is eliminated. Washington's they're in, but they're fighting.
That I think is a positive thing right there because they got in on the last game they played. So this game they may be a little more lax and not be as like, we got to kill it.
They might.
That's good for the Bruins.
They might, but I mean, I guess for the most part they're going to be playing the Islanders no matter what in that metropolitan area division. But you got to go down to Tampa, and Tampa's still fighting for that 1 spot. So they're definitely not gonna play a game where screw it, we'll throw it no matter what.
Well, we don't know because that'll be the final day of the season. So at that point, who knows? It could be a little more wrapped up. I know it's close right now, and I know they could get it, but we don't know what'll happen in these final couple days of the year. So maybe Tampa will be either in or out or whatever and whatnot. But we can't depend on other teams anyways because as we saw against the Maple Leafs, the Bruins shot the puck 50 times and still had to go into a shootout to win it. And so I'm not going to say that just because a team is down and out that it won't win or can't win. It's just not the way it is. In hockey, it seems you get on the ice, I think competitive nature just gets in there, so you do try hard. Maybe you could say that talent might not be put in, maybe they won't put Brandon Holtby in goal for Washington, and that would probably be very good for the Bruins considering how much trouble they have with him. In that case, I would say yes, that's a benefit for the Bruins. But the good thing back to Chara, the good thing with Chara is he did practice Tuesday and he should be fine. Claude Julien says he should be fine. He practiced. If he practices, he should play. So Chara back, that's good because Joe Morrow was coming up and he was going to be in the lineup if Chara couldn't get out on that ice. So I feel a lot better having Chara out there and his long reach and being able to just get pucks out from in front of the net as often as possible. I do think that I've loved Brett Conley now that he's gone on the ice.
Why?
Because he checks. He checks. He's not even that big, but he checks at the other end. Whenever he's flying after a puck, he goes right, takes anybody into the wall. He plays with no fear, as far as I'm concerned. He's great. He's good stick handler. Puck handler. I feel like he's aggressive. He's a very aggressive player, and I like watching his aggressiveness. I don't know how many Bruins are as aggressive as he is.
Well,
maybe it could hurt him in the end, but I like him.
Hey, man, pump the brakes with that. I'll give you that, though. He did look aggressive, but 3 games, man, that he's only played. And I think something that is really important that people need to realize is what Claude is doing with his those end of the line guys. He's making guys have to play that way, though, Droz. Healthy scratch the other night of Danny Paille and Gregory Campbell, guys that Claude loves. But, hey, man, we need to find the right lines, no matter because we can't worry about the playoffs at all because we got to worry about getting there first. And Claude is still mixing and matching those lines, so I do like how he came out with that tenacity. I'll definitely give you that. Hitting guys left and right. I think he did lead the team in hits that last game against Toronto, so hopefully that does continue. But fact of the matter is, I'm not going to get too excited about that. The Bruins are going to come down to their top players. Their top players are going to have to perform. I mean, you got Claude now putting Bergeron and Krejci together on that top line, so they're going to have to perform on a nightly basis, and it's going to be. It was good to see Bergeron score. I'm telling you, I swear to God, if we have any other shootouts, it better be those top guns. You better not throw any stupid players in there. It better be Krejci, Bergeron, Marchand, or Pastrnak. One of those 4 guys better be in the top 3 every single night if we have a shootout, because now you might need that 1 point. So no stupid choices for shootouts for Claude, but they're going to have to fight through. If you have to look at all the teams here, they definitely, in my opinion, have the toughest stretch out of any teams because they're all on the road, and for the most part, besides Florida, even Florida will play them tough. Okay, yep. So they have the toughest schedule remaining out of the teams that are tied here at 95, and Ottawa at 93, in my opinion.
Well, Ottawa, 9-2-2 in their last 12 games.
Yeah, they're playing great. I mean, the good part about the Bruins is they're playing great as well. They're on a 5-game winning streak, and that roller coaster that I've described the entire season as is in full effect, man. They had they just keep going up and down, and I'm very curious to see what happens here. Unlike the Celtics, I have expectations for the Bruins. I think if they miss the playoffs, someone's head's definitely going to be chopped off. We don't know who it will be. I can take my guesses, but if they do get in, I don't know if that's going to save their head, whether it's Claude or Chiarelli, but they have expectations. They need to get in, and it's definitely going to be fun. I know that it's going to be a little nerve-wracking compared to Celtics because I don't have any expectations whatsoever. But when you have expectations, it does get nerve-wracking. These last 3 games, they're going to be fun to watch, but they are definitely going to be worrisome.
But you're absolutely correct on all points, or at least I feel the same way. But I want to go back to the Detroit game, and I think that showed the heart the Bruins have. Going down 2-0 in the third period, Stephen Weiss scores on the power play. Bruins get a power play about a minute and a half later and take right back advantage. This is in the third period. They're down 2-0 against the Red Wings on the road, the team that's that they could basically tie with, and they score on the following power play. Soderberg puts one in the right side of the net, right past Mrazek, and down 2-1. 2 minutes after that, Riley Smith, with an unbelievable move behind the net, slings it through Mrazek straight to Louis Eriksson, who's just waiting for that puck. Louis Eriksson in front of the net is so good. He is just so good with his hands in front of the net, and he just puts it right in there. That ties it 2-2, and then just the way you want to see it at the end, Zach Trotman, it wasn't anything pretty, but he shoots it. It comes back to him. He gets his own rebound and just shoots it again for his first NHL goal with like 2.5 minutes remaining, and the Bruins win the game. Oh, Chris Kelly, let's not forget, at the end of the game, pretty much sat on the puck and kept it in the corner for about 25 seconds to make sure the Bruins won.
Oh, yeah, that was the best one out of those 5 games, in my opinion. You make a great point, Droz. And, yeah, it doesn't matter, man. Just like Marcus Smart the other night, I don't care. You win a basketball game, or a hockey game, football game, whatever we talk about, baseball, I don't care if it's ugly, okay? I'd rather win ugly than lose pretty. So keep going with that. But, yeah, you're right. Watching that game, I didn't think the Bruins would be able to come back, but they did. You got the unexpected contribution there at the end by Trotman, and who knows, man? This roller coaster team, hopefully they are peaking at the right time. Not a lot of games, I'll say once again, to figure out whether or not, but fact of the matter is they really need to get in and then somehow avoid Montreal in the first round, because if they do, I'll keep saying it, I don't think they have a chance in hell to beat them.
Well, in the postseason, they always seem to play them tougher than in the regular season. I know they don't have the greatest record against Montreal, and last season they were eliminated from the playoffs by Montreal, but the year they won the Stanley Cup, they did beat Montreal in the playoffs. They have taken Montreal. I feel like I've watched them play Montreal in the playoffs at least like 7 times throughout my lifetime, maybe 8. They're always playing Montreal in the playoffs, and most of the time they do lose, and usually they're long series. They're not just, sweeps or 5 games. They're usually 6 or 7 games. But this, not even on to Montreal, back to these 3 games that they have to play. At Washington, if they can come up with a win, if Holtby's in or not, I think this is the biggest game. Well, first off, let's start with the Tuesday night game, Pittsburgh at Ottawa. Pray to the Lord, first off, that Pittsburgh can just pull out a win. Because you brought up the Philly game versus Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh was great, actually, in the offensive zone. But Steve Mason was all worldly. I don't know much about Steve Mason, but Pittsburgh can pepper shots. And when they get power plays or whatever, I really don't know how you stop them. But he stopped them. I don't know how many saves that guy had, 42, something like that. He was unstoppable. The Flyers barely had the puck in Pittsburgh's zone the entire game and still won. That should also be on the Pittsburgh goaltending situation, because there's something wrong over there. Yes, that is a problem for them. But thank the Lord for Philly. First off, and I said this to my girlfriend, thank the Lord for the fact that Philly hates Pittsburgh, and thank the Lord for Steve Mason.
Yeah,
because that's the only reason that Philly even played in that game and won it.
Exactly, Droz. It's those rivalry games, and then you hear towards the end of the game, you got the fans cheering, "You can't beat us," because you know what? Yeah. They're right.
And it's in Philly, yeah, and the fans are going crazy, even though they've been eliminated for the playoffs for like 2 weeks.
Doesn't matter. That was they went 4-0 against Pittsburgh on the air, so they're right. You can't beat us was in full effect, and that was their like Stanley Cup, because they're out of it. They hate Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh hates them. There was some shenanigans in that game with Kunitz flying the puck, shooting the puck, and you don't do that in the NHL when there's a penalty coming, and then you got guys flying at him, including Claude Giroux, and it was an intense game, but Mason was definitely the guy that was the reason why they won that game. He made unbelievable stops. He was definitely in the 40s with saves. But, yeah. Go Pittsburgh tonight. I don't know. Somehow get your heads out of your you-know-whats. And
yeah, because the Hamburglers waiting for you.
Exactly. I mean, that's the game that I'm going to be watching tonight. I don't know about you. I think you're going to work, but I'll be all eyes glued on that, because if Ottawa pulls it off, it's going to be going right down to the end of the season here.
Yeah, exactly. Ottawa. This game is. Normally, I don't sit and watch other teams play hockey. I don't. I just watch.
Me neither. Yeah.
But in these final couple games, this tells you how intense this race is right now. Because I watched the Pittsburgh-Philly game as well, and I will watch this Pittsburgh-Ottawa game tonight. I do not have to work tonight. I'm going to watch the Pittsburgh-Ottawa game, because it's insane. It's insanity right now. I mean, if Ottawa wins, they'll be tied up there with everybody. We're all going to be, it'll be Pittsburgh. Well, actually, Detroit has to play Carolina tonight. Carolina's at Detroit or Tuesday night. So if Carolina ends up, or if Detroit wins or loses, and Pittsburgh loses, that means that we're going to have 4 teams tied with 95 points. And that's insane with 3 games to go for well, no, they'll all have 2 games, and the Bruins will actually have the game in hand with 3, but that'll be given up Wednesday night when they play the Capitals. But that's so close.
Yeah.
You don't know who's going to make it. There's 3 spots to have with 4 teams, but any team could be out. The Bruins do have the toughest schedule. I believe the Bruins are one of the better teams, if not I believe they're the best team of all those teams. That's why I think they'll get in. But it's not going to be easy. I really don't like this back-to-back Washington, then Florida. I'm happier that it's Florida, but I'm not happy it's Florida because who do we have on Florida? Sean Thornton, who is pissed off at the Bruins and wants to beat them up. And then we got Jaromir Jagr. Well, I don't really think he's too much against the Bruins, but, he played for them, and maybe he'll want whatever. And they lost a close game the last time they played the Bees. So, I don't know. They're out of it. Maybe they'll just want to go fishing or whatever and give in, but maybe not. You never know.
Golfing, man, golfing.
Golfing, fishing, whatever.
That's what I hope. That's what I hope they want to do. But, I mean, down there in Sunrise, Florida, they could golf there year-round, so it's not like we're talking about a team that's way up in Vancouver or anything. I don't think they're gonna be one of those teams that just throws it in. Hopefully they do for our case, but no, it's gonna be 3 tough games. You think they're gonna get in? I actually do think they're gonna get in too. So we agree on this one. We'll see what happens, man. What do you think they're gonna do, Droz? You think if you had to predict these 3 games, what do you think they go?
I think that they're gonna go 2-1. I think they go 2-1.
Flat out loss or an OT loss?
I think that it'll be an OT loss. I think they'll play their butts off for all these games. I think the OT loss will come. Actually, I think that the OT loss will come against Florida. I think that's the game where they're gonna have their trouble. It's the back-to-back. They won't take Tuukka out. And as you've said before, they've been horrible in back-to-backs when Tuukka's got to play both. And Tuukka's gonna have to play all 3 of these games. There's no way in hell they won't do it. And
God, that'd be the worst decision in Claude Julien's career, maybe, if he didn't play him in all 3.
Yeah, so he's got to play him, and I think that's the one where you're going to see the loss. I think they'll actually get Washington, and then they'll win it at the end in Tampa. But the point, if Ottawa can lose tonight or Tuesday night to Pittsburgh, then a win against Washington, I believe, puts them in a straight up win. So then it doesn't matter as much. And if not, because the points would tie up, then they just need an overtime loss to get in. So that would actually essentially have them in before their game Saturday in Tampa Bay. So I think they go 2-0-1 in the final 3 games.
Okay, I'm kind of in agreement. If they go 2-0-1, that'd be great. That's 5 out of 6 points that they get. So they're definitely going to get in with that. I think they'll get 4 points, and I still think they're going to get in. But speaking about a team that's fighting for playoff hopes, unexpectedly continues here. Our beloved Boston Celtics. And the Boston Celtics, they really pulled one out of their you-know-whats the other night with amazing timeout, in my opinion, called by Brad Stevens when they had that timeout in his back pocket. He didn't like what he saw going on. You had Jared Sullinger getting the ball, who, yes, ladies and gentlemen, Jared Sullinger is back. All of a sudden, I'm reading on
20 pounds in 6 weeks, apparently.
Exactly. I'm reading on Twitter. Sullinger is back. I was like, what? That was just interesting / unbelievable to me that he came back this quick because the guy had a foot injury and he's massive. But back to the point I was saying, you got back and forth. You got DeMar DeRozan playing great for Toronto, and no Kyle Lowry, so we got lucky with that. But Stevens calls a timeout at the end of the close to the end of the game. After DeRozan scores, nobody could stop him, and sets up this play where you got Isaiah Thomas flying from like the 3/4 court.
That was ridiculous.
It was a great play call, Droz. They did not expect it. He gets the ball, and Isaiah Thomas is like Speedy Gonzalez, flies by his guy, throws it up. Didn't go in, lands in Smart's hand. He puts it in, and they score. And I'm just like looking at my TV like, what?
What just happened? Exactly. That's exactly how I felt. I mean, Isaiah Thomas goes kamikaze to the hoop, and And everyone's like, what the hell? And he puts it up. I've read some places that people thought that was a pass, but that was not a pass. There's no way that was a pass. That was not a pass. And then, of course, only the Celtics would the ball land in little Marcus Smart's not that little. He's like 6'4", but land in Marcus Smart's hand so he could just put it up for the layup as the freaking buzzer rings and win the game in overtime against Toronto, who's, yes, they didn't have Lowry, but what, the 4 or 5 seed in the East right now?
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, and I was just like, okay. And it was tough, man, because you're coming back from a really bad loss to, I wouldn't say really bad, but a bad loss at home against Milwaukee. Milwaukee is better than you. They would probably beat us in a 7-game series, but the fact of the matter is you're at home against Milwaukee. You got to win that game. They really did not have a good second half, and that's keeping it G-rated here on the Boston Sports Brew. And they come back the next night, and he's back in Toronto. But like the Celtics have done all year, these back-to-back games, they just somehow win. They did it at Charlotte like earlier in the week, and then a week and a half ago after playing Detroit at home, they go to Brooklyn and they win that game, and they beat Indiana like in March, I remember, after facing, I think, Orlando or Memphis at home. They just continue to win these back-to-backs, and it keeps me shaking my head. But now it gets fun though, Droz. We got 5 games.
Wait, the stat on the back-to-backs first. Wins they've won 10 of the past 11 of the second games of their back-to-backs. So of their last 11 back-to-backs, the second game of those they've won.
Yeah.
So think about that. That's ridiculous.
And
10 of the last 11.
Yeah, and the last 4, okay, and actually, not the last 4, the last 5 have come on the road. So they've beaten Miami on the road, Indiana on the road, Brooklyn on the road, Charlotte on the road, and now Toronto on the road. And the last time I checked, yeah, it's the Eastern Conference, and it sucks, but they're all teams that are either in the playoffs or fighting for the playoffs. So that's why they are actually having a chance to get in the playoffs now. But now the fun starts, and the fun starts on Wednesday, the 8th this week, and for some reason, ESPN picked the game up. The Celtics haven't been on ESPN all year long, but for some reason, ESPN has the Celtics game at Detroit. I have yet to see the games for that night, but I mean, what in God's name are they doing putting them on ESPN? They're going to be prime time now. A game, in my opinion, that they have to win, because after that Detroit game, this schedule is absolutely brutal. I have no expectations for this team, but if you're pointing a gun to my head, there's no way they get in. They go at Cleveland, and then they have home against Cleveland, home against Toronto, and then at Milwaukee. So you're going to be facing 4 teams that are already solidified their spots for the most part in the postseason, and you're going to have to win those games. I know the Celtics do have that 8th seed right now, but looking at the schedules of Indiana, who got Paul George back, as well as Miami, who has 4 out of their 5 games left at home, I do not like the Celtics' chances at all.
I am in complete agreement with you, Mattious. At Pistons, at Cleveland, home for Cleveland, home for Toronto, at Milwaukee. I don't see how they win more than 2 games in there. I'll say they can win at Detroit and at Milwaukee, the 2 road games. I do not see them beating Cleveland in either game. It's not a back-to-back, but they play them, in succession. And Toronto, after beating them the way they beat them, I think Toronto will be pissed and want to just beat them.
Yeah, if you had to point a gun to my head, I'd say at best 2-3, maybe 1-4. You look at the Indiana schedule; they're going at the Knicks, at Detroit, home Oklahoma City, home Washington, at Memphis. I mean, that schedule worries me just as much. So I don't care if they have Paul George back or not. That is, I think, even a tougher schedule. I mean, yeah, the Knicks suck. They are at the Knicks. You never know what can happen. They'll probably end up beating them, but there's no – the other 4 games they could definitely lose. But the schedule that really got to me was Miami. They're struggling. Yeah, they have lost now, I think something like 8 out of their last 10, and they're on a 4-game losing streak. But that at home for the next 4 again, Charlotte, Chicago, Toronto, Orlando, and then at Philly. So looking at their schedule, they are playing – the worst out of those 3 teams here, but if you're gonna tell me to pick a team, I would probably end up picking them just because their schedule is easier, and they do have Wade back now after sitting out. I think he sat out for a game the other I forgot what night it was. I think it was the night where they were at Detroit.
They won. They won when he sat out, whatever game it was. Because I was watching the game because my girlfriend is from Miami. So whatever game it was, Wade was out. They won the game. I don't remember. A couple guys were actually out. Whiteside was out. Someone else was out. There was a couple guys out. Miami won. Miami right now, I still don't trust Miami though, because Wade, you can't guarantee he's going to be on the floor for half these games. He's in, he's out, he's in, he's out. Is he gonna? He seems to play well when he does play. I'll give him that. But I don't know if I would trust the fact that he's just going to be playing all these games, even if it's just 5 games. I don't know. I'm not going to trust that. The team that scares me, actually, because you remember Brooklyn's there already. They're actually only a game ahead of the Celtics for the 7th seed, but it seems to me they're one of the hotter teams in the NBA right now.
They are one of the hotter teams. You're right.
And Brook Lopez seems to have found his way finally.
Joe Johnson hitting game-winning shots, so...
Yeah, I know they had a bad loss to the Hawks, but they bounced right back and beat Portland, I believe, last Monday night. So I'm pretty convinced that Brooklyn will just stay put in the 7th seed. That means that it's the 8th seed. The team that scares me the most is Indiana, even though the Celtics have done well against Indiana. Now that Paul George is back, he played 15 minutes in his first game since August 1st on Sunday, and he scores 13 points. So I feel like that's a pretty good game. That's pretty good numbers for 15 minutes. Watch out. Paul George's minutes are going to go up. Indiana's going to go up. I'd be worried the most about Indiana. I don't care if their schedule's harder. I think these guys have been there before. David West and crew. I don't like Roy Hibbert, actually, but I feel as if that team will be the team that gets in. The Celtics are going to be the unlucky team out, and so will Miami.
Yeah, it's tough to say here with 5 games left because just like we were talking about with the Bruins, I mean, that game at Memphis at the end of the year, who's to say Memphis doesn't play all their players because they already have a specific spot already clinched, and no matter what, they can't move up or go down. So it's going to be tough. I mean, it's tough to judge. If I had to pick, I mean, you're going with Indiana. I would probably go with Miami, and you know what? We'll see what happens. Hopefully, we're both wrong, and the Celtics can have this miracle season continue. But the Celtics play has been phenomenal. Certain guys in the team, I just feel like have been standing way above their head, and that stuff.
Jonas Strebko. Yeah. Jonas Strebko comes to mind first for me. I honestly don't understand it. Every time I watch, it seems like he does something, and it amazes me. He just I constantly laugh because when he got traded to the Celtics, I had no clue. I knew his name, but I didn't know anything about the guy, and he'll either drive in, he'll shoot. He'll shoot from downtown. He'll drive it to the hole and take it up strong. I mean, he's not afraid. And he amazes me. He amazes me just because I don't expect anything out of this guy. I mean, and you could probably argue that about a lot of guys. I mean, Avery Bradley scoring 30 points in a game. I know he's supposed to be, decent. He's a defensive. We always thought of him as a defensive player, previous seasons. But scoring 30 points, he was good at Texas. That might have happened at Texas. But for the Celtics in the NBA? And Evan Turner with his triple doubles, I mean, he still shoots a poor percentage, but sometimes he makes these shots too.
No, and then you got Marcus Smart, who has balls the size of I don't even know, balloons. The guy has hit so many great shots here. It's fun to watch this team. It really is because you don't expect a lot to them, and like we talked pre-show. When you don't have expectations, it's just so much easier, and
yeah, it
feels better. And then when they win, you're like, "What? They won?" Like the other night. I mean, it was a fluky
it was great
ball that landed in Smart's hands, and magically it got there. And then with a second, he puts it up for a layup that I think even you and me would have scored. But yeah, and you can even say the same thing about my boy Tyler Zeller. I know I grilled him earlier in the year. He's not the most athletic guy out there, but he's had a phenomenal year. They're exceeding their expectations not only individually, but they're exceeding their expectations as a team. And I like the Smart pick. I continue to like the Smart pick. He's had a pretty solid rookie season. I can even throw in your boy from Marquette, Jay Crowder. He has a role on this team. It's a fun team to watch. I hope they can somehow sneak in Droz. Like I said like a couple minutes ago, hopefully they can prove us wrong.
You know, they'll probably do the complete opposite of what could be thought and lose to Detroit, then somehow beat Cleveland twice in a row and Toronto and lose to Milwaukee.
Hey, if they go 3-2, oh smokes, I think they're getting in.
Well, then they'll get in. I don't predict that at all, but I could just see them doing some kind of wackadoo move where everything gets flipped the complete opposite way that you think it would go. They just do the complete opposite because that's what this team has been doing all season. They're just which, yes, makes them a joy to watch, makes them fantastic because, yeah, when this season started, when the Boston Celtics started this season, I wanted them to lose, just like Philadelphia was losing. And when they won games, I wasn't happy. And at some point that turned around, I think, when Rondo got out of here.
Rondo, Green, goodbye.
Yeah, and I never been a Green fan. And Rondo, I feel like I always compare him to Eminem. And Eminem sometimes is just too much for me, and sometimes he's just genius, the singer or rapper or whatever.
That's a weird comparison, but go for it, Droz. Keep going.
Yeah, no, I compare it to Eminem because with Rondo half the time he would just piss me off because he won't take it to the hoop. He sits outside and he just passes it around like gives it to somebody. And other games, he just wants to take over and he'll run into Dwight Howard at full speed and then and go up for the layup or kick it out to someone wide open in the wing. I mean, so that's how Rondo was. But I hated him at Kentucky. I thought he was too skinny. I didn't think he could do anything, and I never was a fan of him. So good riddance to Rondo. But yes,
good riddance is right, because guess what? He's going to Dallas, and it has not been smooth sailing down there.
No, they've been angry. They've been angry with him. I mean, he's not the Celtic. I know when he came back to Boston for the game, his first game back in Boston, the fans did the right thing. They gave him an ovation. I mean, he was part of a championship-winning team. But for gosh sakes, I mean, that's it. You know,
goodbye.
Bye. There you go. That should have happened, and I'm glad it did happen, but now I'm glad he's a Maverick, and I hope that he is never wearing the Celtics green again.
He never will. Don't worry.
Yeah, I think Ainge is so happy to have gotten rid of him, and Rick Carlisle's he's his problem now.
Oh,
and Mark Cuban.
God, yeah, they're definitely not getting along down there. But I feel like they got rid of him. They got rid of Green. They're going to build this team with Brad Stevens types players, and Brad Stevens, in my opinion, at a young age, is already one of the best in-game coaches in the NBA. And I don't think he's a fan of Sullinger, to be honest, too. So don't be surprised if he goes. But it's going to be nuts, man. It really is. With the stretch coming up here, it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. Beginning of baseball, end of hockey, end of basketball, or maybe actually some more basketball, more hockey. Hopefully, if we got playoffs. But this is definitely the end of the Boston Sports Brew. Once again, everybody, thank you for listening to another edition. Facebook, Twitter, thank you so much for the likes and for checking us out on Twitter. I know that we've been getting a lot more Twitter followers, right, Mattious? Yep, at BOS Sports Brew, at BOS Sports Brew. So follow us along there, too. Definitely the spot where you're going to be able to find us and access our show coming out, which hopefully you all enjoy. Once again, this has been another week of the Boston Sports Brew. For Mattious, I'm Droz. Enjoy your week.